This video is sponsored by PCBGOGO.com, a reliable and professional PCB prototyping and assembly manufacturer. Over the past 2 years, PCBGOGO has been helping us here on Wi-Fi Shoot with all our custom PCB needs and has always offered a professional and high quality service for extremely reasonable prices, always offering amazing value and service. But did you know PCBGOGO can also assemble your PCBs for you? So if you're tired of waving a soldering iron around, or like me, don't really fancy attempting surface mount soldering, then PCBGOGO can help. Click the link in the description for this video where you can check out all the amazing services they can offer you today. Also, right now, enjoy a $30 coupon for turnkey PCB assembly services only from PCBGOGO.com. Hello, you're watching youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep with me, Tom. I'm currently trying to gear up for the up-and-coming Retro 40th birthday festival, which is happening at the Centre for Computer History, celebrating all machines that have now reached their 40th birthdays. So those would have been assembled, manufactured or bought in 1982. You may have heard me talk about this. I did it in our last update video where I was unfortunately rather unwell with COVID. I'm pleased to say I'm much better now, and as you can see, I'm back home, but I'm now about 3 weeks behind where I need to be. So today in this video, we're going to look at the first of two Model B BBC Micro 8-bit 6502 home computers that I intend to take to the show as my exhibit for this year. Now, normally I only ever have one Model B kind of operational, ready to go out. But the issue has been that since COVID and lockdowns, there hasn't really been much call for BBC Micros to go out into the open. So, well, they haven't. And over the time, the machines have developed some faults or not been used, or capacitors have gone dead, or that sort of thing. So I really need to try and get two up and running. One, which we're going to look at in the next video, is better. It's okay. This one, which was the first BBC Micro actually I ever bought, myself, and it came off eBay a few years ago before the prices went silly money, which they are now. It's developed a few faults, and I want to try and rectify it and clean the machine up to make it more presentable, because I now need it as part of my exhibition content. So this is the first of the two BBC Micro Model Bs that I intend to take along to the show. We'll start with this one first, as it's technically a little bit more problematic and it's not been in service for a couple of years because it's developed a few troubling faults. It was the first machine I got hold of myself back in 2014, and it wasn't in the best condition. It worked, wasn't in the best nick, hence why the top body shell case here is not actually the original for the machine. And there's actually a difference in the kind of colour plastic between the bottom half and the top half. Anyway, let me just show you. So we'll turn it on. And you'll see it does actually boot up. Okay. I'll explain in a minute about these black boxes on the side, but you can see, we should be able to see on the screen now, that we've got a direct capture through off the machine. So I've got these two boxes that I intend to be running alongside the Model B. The first one is a Gotek floppy emulator, which is basically a device that fits into the floppy drive. The computer thinks it's a floppy drive, but it's actually a USB device capable of reading USB compatible ROM files. The second is a relatively cheap HD video standards converter. And what we're doing is we're running RGB out of the BBC Micro. So that's the 6-pin DIN socket, and we're running round to a SCART. These converter boxes, some of the cheap ones only do composite. This one actually is RGB. And then we're going out via HDMI to a capture card, and that's hence how you can see, or will be able to see, what is on the screen. I am aware that there is a better solution for this now, involving a Raspberry Pi and straight RGB from the back of the BBC Micro. I haven't got that set up, and I won't have time to set it up, so I'm going to use this sort of black box solution for the show. Okay, so as I said, this machine has been out of service for a little while, mainly because it's developed a fault. Now, you can see on the screen it looks fine. And if we go into mode 2, that looks fine as well. If I start asking for colours, so mode 2 is the 16 colour mode. So colour 1, colour 2, colour 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0 would be black. So those are your basic 8 digital TTL colours. The BBC Micro is a digital TTL RGB system, so you can't have mid shades or greys or things on a stock machine. But it's advertised as 16 colours. That's actually a lie. So if we now go 8, we get the first of a flashing sort of colours. 9, and this is where the first problem starts. So colour 8 and colour 9 should not be the same, and they are the same. You can quite clearly see that they're the same, and that's not correct. So that alerts me to there potentially being a problem. Anyway, I've just switched to GoTech to channel 4 or disc 4, and I'm just going to catalogue that for you. And this is Revs, which is one of my favourite games, which is a 3D motor racing game. So let's just load that up. And the reason is I want to show you something which is not correct. And you can instantly see that there's a lot of purple blotches and dots on the screen. Now that is part of the source code that's dumped into the screen RAM, because this game eats every bit of space out it can of the BBC Micro. I'll get the game going. It's quite awkward because it actually uses manual gears and has a sort of very primitive clutch system. It's an impressive game and the game runs fine, but that glitching you can see in the sky, that shouldn't be there. And it's not the monitor and it's not the capture card. It does it on absolutely everything, regardless of the mode. So that's the first inkling that there is a problem with this machine. Problem number 2, if I just load up Stylus that we've covered on here on the channel before. This is a very primitive word processor. I typed some text in, and Stylus had a feature where, without needing a hardware installed, it could actually do some very basic talking electronic synthesis. So, by the way, that glitch you see is it's not 100% perfect TTL signal, so occasionally it glitches, but we'll just carry on. So just listen to this. Yeah, so what seems to be happening, which is a bit strange, is that it kind of seems to glitch out. It gets a sort of first bit of word and then just stops. So I think the two problems I've shown you are actually related to each other. Originally I thought it might be bad RAM, which is kind of why this machine got sidelined and not taken out to shows. Admittedly, as I said in the introduction, COVID basically stopped BBC Micros going out to shows, and I kind of moved on to doing other things. So these machines haven't had a lot of use in the past 2 years. And normally I wouldn't be bothering to take 2 Model Bs out to an exhibition, other than because they both need to be the 1982 specials. That mean both of these machines are needed. So anyway, I don't think it's RAM, thank goodness, but I do believe it may be a ULA fault. Now the ULA is a custom graphics, part digital, part analog chip. Basically is what generates the picture and the colours you see on the screen, effectively. And I think we might have a stuck bit. So that's kind of what I'm going to look at, see if we can fix that fault. There's also a couple of other cosmetic issues with this machine. If I just turn off, just take the plug out the back. So underneath here, you can see that I've still got an old turbo MMC drive fitted. That needs to come out. And there's also, I need this user port for the mouse needs to be free, and there's a ribbon sort of stuck in it at the moment. So, and that sort of ribbon goes inside the unit. So, bit of work to do. That's the floppy drive, by the way, which, as we're under here, I'll take that back out now. And the floppy's power comes off and auxiliary on the power supply. The power supply, by the way, I bought this machine with that technically said it was serviced, but between you and me, I'm not so sure. So I want to just take a look inside the power supply if we get time. It hasn't blown up on me, but I want to see how good the service job was, because it may be that if I'm not happy with it, I may end up redoing the servicing on the PSU. Right, so I think the first thing to do is grab a screwdriver and let's take a look inside. Right, so I've got the camera quite a way up in the air, just so I can get everything into frame. Anyway, yeah, so luckily the BBC Micro, especially Model B, is a very utilitarian built machine, which means you only need very basic tools, such as a crosshead screwdriver of a decent size to actually get into it. First thing to do is to make sure you have disconnected everything. The power lead is permanent on the machine, so you can't disconnect that, so that has to stay on. First thing to do, turn the thing over. I'm not too worried about scratching this up. You can actually see on the underside, this is the original underside case, and it has this crack here, which you might be able to just see. Again, you know, ideally I could just swap in the bottom plastic out as well, but I don't think anyone will notice that, so we might just get away with it for today. So I think the first thing to do is take that MMC card out, and I need to get this out at some point as well. So there's two screws here labelled as fix. So just take those out, put them to one side, and then the other two here on the back. This machine actually, well, I remember, I did a composite colour mod. So this was the UHF RF modulator, and I actually converted it to output quite a crude colour composite signal. This is the black and white composite on a BNC jack, so you need an adapter. You've got RGB, you've got the cassette interface, I think it's RS423 serial interface, analog interface that's normally used for joysticks and things, and then obviously you've got the power brick or power supply over here. This one had this sort of tongue here, which you can just catch the light on that to show you. Was actually deteriorated. This back plastic bezel is actually cracking, so I actually stuck a piece of plastic card in at some point to try and sort of strengthen that up. Same was happening with the top lid, which is why this top lid is actually different to the bottom. Anyway, take this off. Very simple. We just take these two screws out. Very, very simple. Okay. So, bearing in mind the top is now loose, we'll just return, whoops, trying to hit the camera. Just return that back. There we go. Also, I'll need to take this blue tack out from underneath the plastic acrylic piece. Forget what it's called, but the piece that has the silk screening with the BBC Micro and the owl on. I need to get rid of the blue tack under that. But right, so this lid will come straight off. There is the underside. Yeah, so relatively simple machine actually. Power supply is self-contained unit. It's actually still on at the moment. Plugged in at the mains, obviously, but not on internally. But it's just bearing in mind it is power running into it. So keyboard, which is mechanical switch keyboard. That's the keyboard ribbon. The sound from this speaker is actually just double-sided tape. I think I have to re-stick that back on if I remember. And then we've got this ribbon lead that's sort of underneath there, so we probably do need to take the keyboard out. To do that, you've got two nuts here, and it's just a case of twisting these off. There we go. You can actually do it by hand. You don't need any tools, and just drop the bolt. Out. I just find it better to keep the nut and bolt back together again. that to one side. This one, normally they're here, but for some reason this one's here and I don't know why that is. So that's that. Now we can pull the keyboard forward very carefully. We can take this lead out. Bearing in mind the speaker is still attached, and we can unplug the speaker here. The keyboard will now come away. It's on a separate PCB. So that's in the side of a BBC Micro keyboard, and that entire unit can come straight out for the moment. Which now means we should possibly, no, not be able to get that ribbon out because it's locked. We'll have to lift the PCB up. But it gives you a better look at the main motherboard or PCB of a BBC Micro. So main areas, you've got this 5 volts and ground voltage bus, which connects the various points across the board. I believe, is that 12 volts on purple? I think there's 12 volts there if I remember correctly. You've then got the various chips. So the main one here is the SY6502, which sits here. Is that correct? Yes, 6502A, which is the middle one here. We actually did another video where we took one of these out of a scrap BBC Micro, my Spurs machine, and we wired it up manually. But that's where it would sit in the machine. We've got things like an Intel floppy ROM, or floppy controller, sorry, here. And then down here, these are the logic ROMs for the OS. So we've got the basic, the operating system, DFS, that's the disk filing system for the computer. And then I mentioned AMX, there's an AMX sticker, that's the mouse drivers that are installed in this machine. Now, the main problem area is, I believe, underneath here, which, if I could just take this off, that's actually comes straight out. Yeah, so I can get that to. This is a heat sink, and this IC is the ULA. There we go. And there we go. So you see it's labelled ULA, and these are custom chips. Luckily you can now get the NULA, which we have covered before, and my other Model B has one fitted, so you can get a new replacement for this particular chip. I've seen these go for stupid money on eBay, and they're an old chip and they get very, very hot, hence you have the sort of very old-fashioned style heatsink, and I think that's been double taped. It should actually have heatsink compounds. That's possibly overheated, or this has been detached at some point in this machine's past. So yeah, but that basically I think is the problem, and I think that IC is our issue. So with that out, I think while we're here, I'm just going to, I'm just thinking, I'd like to take the main motherboard out actually, because I want to give the case a bit of a clean. So can we do that? Yeah, the problem we've got is that if you try and remove the main board, this socket here for the BNC is actually soldered in, so you have to clip those wires or desolder before you can lift the board, and also you need to uncouple the power. I think what we'll do is we'll just take these securing screws out, because we do need to lift the motherboard, if nothing else. Keep those in situ. Plastic washers are important because they stop the metal, backs of the metal screw heads from touching or making ground with any tracks or anything. It shouldn't be an issue because it's all been silk screened, but it does happen. Right, so what I think we can now do is we can, should be, oh no, there's one more screw which I missed. There's one there. Okay, so we should be able to just pull this forward. There we go, and then can we pull that back? It gets tight because of these cables. And that should give us enough space now there to pull the unwanted ribbon lead, which we now pull straight out the machine. I'm trying to think, shall I snip the BNC? I don't like doing it, if I'm honest, but are we going to use it? I think you do have to, if I remember correctly, you do have to cut it to get the board out. So we'll just get this back and sit for a minute. There is a nut on there, but that's very, very tight. But if I do remember correctly, yeah, I think you do have to actually cut it. I kind of like to get the case a bit of a clean, in all honesty. So, yeah, okay. Got some snips. I'm going to cut the BNC. I think I've already cut this once before, but I'm going to cut it again. That disconnects the BNC black and white composite. Now we're very, very careful to take these jumpers out. You have to be so careful not to pull the metal lug straight off the board. I beg your pardon, the purple was actually -5 volts. There we go. Okay. I might at this minute just take the power off at the mains, just in case. So if we do the same trick again, there we go, we can pull, oops, of course they've still got the plastic washers on, haven't they? So we can actually pull the main board out, and yeah, that's looking alright. Right, shall I pop that to the side a moment? Yeah, so I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite, it's a lot of dust inside here actually, so yeah, that's probably right to dismantle this out really. Yeah, so what I might do then is, as I want to look at the power supply, I think we probably need to take the power supply out as well. Now, Boost Micro power supplies, which are these, normally these switching types. There was an earlier one which had a linear type supply that's different to these. Let's just turn this over. So this one has these sort of plastic nylon screws. It does actually have the safety mesh. There was an issue with some of BBC Micros that they didn't have the safety mesh under the power supply. So any kid with a steel ruler or screwdriver could actually poke straight through the vent and go and hit a live 240 volt power rail inside the power transformer. So that's good to see this one's a little bit safer. So we'll take these nylon screws, and there's a little metal washer. These needs to come out. Just be careful with the one with the crack. There we go. I think the power supply might be loose. Yep. So I'm going to lift carefully out, and that releases the lid. And here is the power supply. And yeah, so this is a new addition, the safety plate. Normally they wouldn't have it, and it would just be screwed in directly like this. This power transformer, by the way, is upside down. Problem with doing that, as I said, is you've got all this high voltage stuff. So let's just have a quick look then. Yeah, I can see one cap. Let's just zoom in, I'll show you what I'm looking at. These power transformers used reefer smoothing capacitors, which are notorious for blowing up. So there's one cap that's been replaced there, but it's one of those horrible cheap yellow thingies, I forget the name of. And there is another one, which worryingly, I'm not sure that's actually been replaced, you know. Because that still looks like an original reefer. I don't know if it is, but that looks a bit concerning. Also, by the way, if you've got the power supply out like this, you need to be very careful, because obviously the large capacitors on this will still be holding charge. So, yeah, you do need to be careful. If you're not comfortable with power supply servicing, don't do this bit, obviously. Interestingly, it always says underneath that there's no, I'm going to find it, there's no user serviceable parts. Yeah, well, there's going to be some user serviceable parts today. I think what I might do is I'm just going to investigate. So I might have to take this apart a bit more and just investigate what that other reefer cap, if it is a reefer cap. I'm not happy, so I think I'm going to redo the caps on this. Basically just because it's probably good practice. Right, on further inspection, I don't think the one that's just in here, so I can actually get that. It's so difficult to see, but basically it's this one here. I think it's been replaced. It's not a reefer branded, so hence why it hasn't blown up. So I think that'll be all right. This yellow thing here, suntan or whatever it's called, yeah, they're cheap and nasty, but it'll be all right for the moment, I think. One thing I have noticed, I've just bring the thing around, a closer look, is there's what's known as a tantalum capacitor, which is this thing here. I think it's a tantalum anyway, and it's looking a little bit suspect actually. It's got a pair of tweezers. I just want to figure out, is that sort of like this sort of molten, and I'm just trying to figure out, is that just a sort of a glue, or is the cap actually sort of bulging? Might just be a sort of, I don't know, maybe some sort of a veneered varnish or something on top of the no, the case hasn't split, but I don't think it's split anyway. Trying to see, I'm actually now looking for the viewfinder camera just because it gives me a better look. So zoom in a bit more without it going out of focus. Oh no, there we go. Need a macro mode really. Come on, let's focus. I can get that to focus, can't see properly. There we go. No, I'm not sure what this sort of sticky, if it's just the outer coating or what, but it looks intact. See, that's the problem, is you do need to start checking every capacitor, especially these large electrolytics, because they do go bad. They start bulging and leaking and you name it. But that's looking, it's looking all right. I mean, this won't be all right forever. Let's be honest with you. Caps will go bad. These things will go bad at some point. This thing's going to need a major rebuild, or we'll need to look at possibly a more modern, more efficient power supply than this one. But if I had more time, because I have been sick with COVID, because I've lost 3 weeks, I would probably change the former reefer capacitors. Build had been done in this unit, but yeah. No, I think we'll leave it as is at the moment, and we'll go and concentrate on the rest of the unit. So this is working, and it's going to be stable enough, hopefully, for an exhibition. Because bear in mind, this has got to run solidly for 2 days, for many hours. So obviously making sure that it's going to run all right for that length of time, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm just going to turn my attention back to the lid. Now, this is a lid from a slightly newer Model B. They changed the sort of grain feel, was much finer on these later ones than it was on the originals. So it's not the proper case for a 1982 machine. I am thinking that I'm going to run one Model B sort of complete encased, and the other one I may run without the lid on, but that'll be the other machine because it's got the video NULA card fitted, and there's a lot more interesting things going on inside, so that could run just without the top lid. The top lid on the other micro is the correct period. So I don't know if to bother with this one or just go and put the other lid on this unit so it looks more period correct for the exhibition. So these are just 2 blobs of blue tack on this one that were used for when I was putting sort of advertisements or sort of info panel printed pieces underneath this, which is the programming paper holder or strip. So I'll just take those as 2 blobs of blue tack that were just stopping things from sliding out. And as I said, the BBC Micro logo is actually silk screened onto the piece of acrylic. So it just bends and clips in like that. This one's actually quite a nice body chop, although it's not correct for the machine. Mainly because if I just show you down here, it has this sort of cutout area, which is kind of nicknamed the ashtray, intact. Now, when I was at school, and most of these beebs in schools, it was the one part that was quite vulnerable on the case, and kids would be taking, you know, a screwdriver or a biro or whatever, and they would just be sort of smashing straight through and poking this panel out. It's actually an expansion panel. I do have 1 or 2 other machines that actually have things in this unit, but it's nice to get one that's actually got the intact plastic bevel still there. So yeah, it's the other thing about you take these out to shows, and will, you know, a kid come along and sort of try and poke through. I think that one, if I remember, I did. Yes, you can see I did actually catch the light on that to show you. I did run a bit of glue around the inside. You can see it there, just to reinforce it, to stop it being poked out. So, but I'm sort of thinking we might not use this body top on show day. Right, well, I think I'll probably wait until tomorrow to clean the case, but that doesn't mean we can't look at the main motherboard PCB. Single board on this, double-sided, quite a nice simple design, rather compact considering the age. You'll notice the RF can up here. The can top is actually missing, and there's this bypass wire, and this is a really simple mod. It's a crude mod to actually bypass the tuner circuit and take direct colour composite through to the RCA jack here. Normally that would not be RCA composite, it would be UHF for aerial tuning, or so it'd be RF signal, but I converted it cheaply and easily to colour composite because it did work with some things at the time, although it was a very dirty signal. The wires next to it are obviously the ones we snipped from the black and white pieces. That's quite a crisp black and white signal off there. Anyway, before we do anything else, I've got a can of compressed air, so we'll just give that a quick spray. There we go. So I've been going through my spare parts. When you run 8-bit machines, you end up with spare parts, and I have in here couple of spare bits, including 2, I think, working, these are both working ULA replacements, and they've still got the old compound on, so we might go and clean that up in a minute, but there's one, so we could test that chip. And I also noticed I had an EEPROM for floppy wise, which is there, which I might actually install in this machine while I'm here. So here on the ROMs we've got a spare socket, so we can probably fit floppy wise if the pins are relatively straight, which they look to be. So let's see if that'll actually go in. Oh, it will. There you go. Notch is always to the top on EEPROMs, so that should be floppy wise installed. And we've now got a full deck of ROMs on the Model B. Okay, let's see about cleaning up this replacement ULA chip. So it's still got some of the impact adhesive. Ugh, I shouldn't have done that because it's now got on my thumb. Impact adhesive, so thermal coupling paste, what it's actually called. And I've just got some Q-tips, and this is just some white spirit. And I should be able to very, very carefully dilute that down and just clean the residue of this 40-year-old paste just off the there we go. Use the dry end just to dry it up. There we go. That cleans up really, really nicely. So we've still got the main board here on the bench, and we'll test this one out first. So it's notched at the top, and just carefully make sure that goes in all right. Don't want to bend any legs. It's looking all right. Other side, yep, that's looking fine. So we'll just put that in. Okay, so this should run with a heatsink, really. We can do a quick bench test, probably without putting a heatsink on, just for like literally a minute, just to test it does actually work and corrects the fault. And if it does, we'll come back to looking at how we can keep this cool to stop this one from failing as well. So I've wired the board back up just here outside the case on the desk. Power supply's here. You can do this, you just have to be a little bit careful. Make sure that you're not touching anything, or you're not going to cause a short or anything. And also just be aware that you haven't got the protection on the mains power supply that you would if it was inside the case. The floppy drive, GoTech, is in. It's been powered off the PSU, and the power bus is back. Just make sure that red is at the top and black for 0 volts at the bottom. It is labelled here on the issue-free silk screen. It is actually labelled. So I've got the capture card plugged back in, and if we now plug this back in, oh actually no, wait, before I forget, you can't boot a Model B without a keyboard present. It won't actually work. So let's just slide that along and just bring back the keyboard, and we'll very quickly put the sound and the keyboard back in. There we go, and we'll sort of rest the keyboard kind of awkwardly like that, but it'll work. Right, fingers crossed. That's sounding good. And see, FloppyWise has now got, that's a string of booted drivers. There we are, FloppyWise Plus is now installed. That's great. I'm just conscious about this chip is running without a heatsink, so let's just get on and do the test quickly. So we'll go mode 2 and colour 1. By the way, it's working, so this, at least we know this chip is good. What have I done colour 3? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9. This is looking better. 10, yeah. 12. Yeah, that's actually looking fine. So I think it's managed to fix the fault. Let's just brake. Let's just test with revs again. Oops. Let's just load that up. And well, it's looking better. I am noticing some glitching artifacting though, but it is looking better than it was. Ah, but now the sound's just cut out. Yeah. we might have a dodgy connection. Okay. Well, it's looking better than it was. So let's just power back down now. I've been thinking about what I need to do to protect this chip to stop it getting hot. You could, with some thermal paste, reattach and take the old chip off, but reattach this kind of heatsink thing. But it's not very efficient. It's a bit crude. So I had to basically scrounge around just to see what I could find, scavenge around rather, see what I could find. And I got these Raspberry Pi heatsinks, which are self-adhesive. And I think I bought these in a sale or something actually. And they're quite nice. So we could put one there. I've got a sort of silver one. I want to put two on or one on. Got a silver one. Have I got another golden one? I think I have, yes. There we go. So meant to be for Raspberry Pis, but I guess we could, I think two will do actually. We could fit them to the top of this chip. So we just take the protective adhesive paper off the back, and it gives this little sticky sheet, and just carefully get that on. Actually doesn't really matter, it just looks better if you can get it relatively straight. There we go. So put those two onto there, and that should help to dissipate the heat and be a little bit more efficient, and also stay on there with better adhesive contact than what was on previously. Okay, welcome back. Day 2 and a change of plan. So I did in the end decide, instead of trying to clean up that other base case unit, I would swap it out for this one, which is off my scrap machine, but it's actually in considerably better nick. It's actually a better tooling. Also, it's the one that has this, you won't see it on camera, but it has this fine sort of like grain texture, so it matches the top of the case on this unit. And I just thought, you know what, it's better nick, nothing smashed up. The moulding's slightly structurally better. I'll show you here. You can see where it has a little tab for the base plate. It's actually reinforced with plastic. So it's just little things like that really that, you know, make this a better one. Oh, and also the grill's redesigned, so you can't stick things into the air vents for the power transformer, so we don't need that metal plate on this one. So yeah, it's just stuff like that really. So what I did is I gave this a clean, just with some wet wipes and stuff, which is, yeah, it's not perfect, but it'll do. It's a little bit yellowed. It could do with being retro brighted because it doesn't quite match the top of the case because they're from different machines, but it's not retro brighting season here at the moment in the UK. Recording this early May, you get a window on good weather from about mid to late June through to early to mid July. After that, it's probably not good enough. So yeah, we might do some retro brighting, but not now, not for this show. So let's reintroduce the issue 3 board. By the way, this was an issue 4 case, so it's not exactly correct, but it'll do. Let's get that in. It'll fit basically. The ULA, by the way, I changed the chip out again because the one I showed you in the video started developing some issues, and I just thought, oh, sod it. So I got another one, which is actually my last spare. Hopefully it'll hold out, and that's all I can say really. We just got a fingers crossed this is going to hold out. But this PCB should line up, it should go in okay. That's back in. This case also doesn't have the B and C socket here, so I'm just going to leave the whole. I'm not going to attach these wires back, so we're just not going to use the B and C. And to be honest, it's annoying having the socket sticking out. If you were trying to restore this back to an absolute factory condition machine, then yes, you'd have the B and C connector back in. Not to say I won't put it back in the future, but I think for now we're going to leave that. Because we've got the colour composite coming out of here as a sort of cheap and dirty mod, so it'll be fine. Right, power supply. Now slightly different moulding here, but this should still fit. So well, first one, we disconnect the flopper controller. There we go. So actually, because of the way this works, yes, I need to clean the power cord because it's dirty as well, but just for the minute, we need to put the plug through the case, feed all the flex through. The flex seems in okay condition despite being 40 years old, so I have changed the flex on these before completely, which we could do if we were doing a refurbishment. Right, let's see now. Being very careful. Get our PSU to fit. Something like that. And we've got 3 nylon screws on the underside, so just need to flip this over. This is a bit awkward. You've got to hold the PSU in place until you can get the screws in. And it has gripped, thank goodness. Make sure you've got the washers on these as well. Oops, without doing that. And as I said, we don't need this protective plate because the design of the grill's changed. So that's now in. That's looking fine. Okay, let's get the power back on. There we go. That should all be in. So the new ULA chip, or replacement ULA chip, is in. Board screwed. ROMs we want are in. Let's now reattach the keyboard. So plug. You can see I'm going to plug the speaker in. The sort of ribbon connector goes onto these pins. Try and sort of line the keyboard up the best you can, something like that. We'll just pass through here. There we go. Okay, that's looking fine. So let's put the VGA back in. And I guess we'll put the plug in, that might help. And we'll do a quick power test. Okay, machine worked, no sound. And I've been having an intermittent sound problem for some time actually. But yeah, the keyboard's working. Annoyingly, it means you've got to take the keyboard forward. It means you've got to undo your keyboard retaining bolts again. I think it's a loose connection, you know. But I can hear the static. Yeah, that's now working. Oh, by the way, before I put the keyboard back, just show you this little thing here. This is a potentiometer, which, oops, if you were about shorting things out. Yeah, that's me just touching the top of a resistor on the sound circuit. These caps, by the way, are probably more or less done or need recapping at some point. But this is a potentiometer which I've turned all the way up to try and boost the volume on the machine. Sounds quite loud in here, but it's still very quiet. If you imagine that in a busy exhibition hall with lots of other machines making more noise than this, I don't know how much you're actually going to be able to hear. But right, that seems to be okay. So let me just show you the top again, which I think, to be honest with you, change of plan we will keep with this machine. So that's the top, and it looks all right actually. It looks the part, but just draw your attention to this area. You can sort of see the speaker straight through the grill. Now normally there'd be either a plastic housing on later machines, or there'd be some sort of felt material inside there just to sort of cover that up and protect the speaker from dust. Now obviously I've lost the original material, but I do have this quite fine foam which I think would work quite well in that space. So what I might do is just take a pair of scissors, and then just here on the underside we just want to sort of place a piece of foam material kind of like that, really, and that would probably be fine. Or even if we just go over something like that would be absolutely fine for this. So I got here some double-sided adhesive tape, and we'll just, these scissors are really bad. What on earth's happened with these? Get a better pair. Right, having now cleaned up my scissors a bit so they actually work, I've got a piece of adhesive carpet tile tape, so we'll just stick a piece there, and then another piece that we'll just sort of put onto here. There we go, something like that. Doesn't have to be that neat, it's fine. So just get the backing off. Okay, and now we can just get this to place over. Okay, that's perfect. Oh yes, that looks much, much better now. There isn't this sort of gaping cream coloured hole over the speaker grill. So yeah, much happier with that. While I was here, I just got the cleaning wipes out, and I was just trying to clean the cord, and I thought, sod it, I'm going to clean the keyboard. I had blasted it with compressed air. Ideally, could probably do with a full service, but just for now, I'll just give it. And I've given the fascia a clean as well, so yeah, it's looking all right. So it's nice just to give these machines a little bit of a TLC. You get them up and running and looking remotely presentable, then obviously that helps. During the show, what I'm hoping to run with this machine is one of these, which is an original, although later revision, AMX mouse for the BBC Micro. These things aren't exactly common, they're not rare, but they show up now and again. It's a 3-button mouse. It's actually not a bad little design for one of the early mice, and it uses the user port pin connection, so it doesn't plug into the analog interface or the joystick interface, which for me would have made sense. No, it uses the user port, which is why I needed to get that cable out of the underside of this machine originally, and also why we can't use things like MMC SD card devices to read data, because they also tie up the user port, hence why we're using the floppy Gotek emulator system. Anyway, let's plug this in, and I want to just test this out and see if this is still working okay. Okay, so let's power back up. Okay, now let's find, if I can, find the AMX Super Art disk image. Ah, there we go. So it's on number 26. So if I now shift and brake, there we go. It should give us the main menu. And does the mouse work? Okay. Yeah, you see, I had this before where it sort of, the mouse goes to sleep, and so it locks on an axis, but you don't get any X movement. It sort of just locks, which is, and it screeches and screams. It needs a little bit of oil in it, I think. Yes, right. Let's just take the screw out. I had this the other day where the mouse sort of just fell asleep. That's interesting. It's not registering X or Y at all. Let's make sure we are actually plugged in properly. Oh, there we go. We might not have been plugged in properly. Right, let's just try that. Ah, there we go. That's better. So it's quite a slow movement. You can't change the mouse speed. It's quite slow, but there we are. So if I now select Art and click, it now gives us the painting art screen. Okay, I'm not sure why that error was, but there we are, we're working. Because it uses mode 1, it literally has a fixed colour palette of 4 colours. So it's used white, black, green and red. And it's sort of using dithering and all sorts to kind of give you an approximation of, so this is a yellow. It's not a yellow, it's a sort of clever trick. And again with sort of various shades, and this sort of almost looks like a blue. Nearly, depends what monitor you're on, of course. Now, of course, looking at this on a CRT, you wouldn't get such a clear, sharp image. Because we're running this through HD capture, it really is picking up nearly every single pixel. But, and then you've got the more sort of gory patterns. There we are. Just deselect from that. No, deselect. It does sort of work, and this is the main thing I want to try and demonstrate. And you can see we get quite, it's okay. It's quite a good movement with the mouse. It's a little slow, admittedly, but it's not bad. And at least the machine now is working. And yeah, even though if I do say so myself, I think it's actually looking okay. One down, one to go. Now, I don't want to jinx it, but I hopefully generally think that the next Boost Micro will be a little bit easier than this one. This one was the one I was more worried about, and I'm thrilled to get it up and running for the show. So fingers crossed it actually remains intact and doesn't blow up or fail during the exhibition itself. If you want to know more details about the up-and-coming 40th birthday festival, you can head over to events.wifisheep.co.uk, and there'll be links there to take you through to the Centre for Computer History's main page, where you can pre-order tickets. I believe, but don't quote me on this, that hopefully tickets will be available on the day on the door. You won't have to pre-book for the event, but do check on their website to make sure that that is correct. And I'm also not sure what the COVID regulations, if any, will be for the event. Either way, it's going to be on May the 21st and 22nd, 2022 at the Centre for Computer History in Cambridge, England. I'm going to be there for both days. Look out on our Twitter, that's at Wi-Fi Sheep, that's at Wi-Fi Sheep on Twitter. I'll be dropping some information about when I'm hoping to do some impromptu live streams from the event here on the channel throughout the day. So do keep a lookout for that. Now, we're going to have to do part 2 of this. We've got another Boost Micro, as I said, we need to fix. It's possible, because I'm running so behind schedule, that that video won't get out before the event actually happens. So this might be the last one before we actually go to the event. If you are planning coming down, it'd be fantastic to see you. As I said, I'm there for both days. And as always, thank you so much for your company. If you haven't done already, please do consider liking and subscribing. It really helps the channel out a lot. And I hope to see you real soon right here on the channel. Until next time, look after yourself, and bye for now.